Hi everyone. In this video we are going to review all of the parties and candidates running in the European elections on June the 7th, 2024 and provide a rating for each party or candidate across a number of areas including freedom of speech, COVID-19, immigration and climate change. First and foremost, I want to start this video by confirming that I have no party affiliation, and the information used to arrive at the party or candidate rating is all publicly available and includes the likes of party policy documents, statements made to the media and on social media, and in the case of serving politicians, their Oireachtas voting records and debates. It should also be noted that in most cases where a party is putting forward a new candidate, the voting records of that party generally will be used in part to arrive at the new candidate's rating. I also want to say that the comments I will be making in this video are not influenced positively or negatively by any friendship or lack thereof. Now, I have chosen to rate candidates against freedom of speech, COVID-19, immigration and climate change because, in my view, these issues have had the biggest impact on our rights, freedoms, opportunities, property, wealth and resources in living memory and will have into the future. With respect to each of the four areas, parties and candidates are grouped according to three ratings, being weak, moderate or strong, and I will provide an explanation for each rating at the start of each policy area. In the event that a candidate or party has not given sufficient voice to any of these areas, I will take it by default that that candidate holds a weak position on this topic. Finally, just to say that this video has been prepared in good faith and I have done a considerable amount of research to arrive at the ratings. That said, I have no doubt that some people will disagree with the ratings I've provided, and that is their right. Also, just to say that at the end of the video, I will outline my voting choices across the three constituencies. So now we will begin with freedom of speech. So on the screen you can see three ratings under the heading of weak, moderate or strong, with weak being those persons most likely to infringe on your right to freedom of speech or expression, and those with a strong rating being the least likely. The first table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a weak rating with regard to freedom of speech, noting that a weak rating means the following: the criminalisation of speech and the right to express dissent based on the subjective perceptions of a complainant, with powers granted to An Garda Síochána to violate the sanctity of your home in search of any material deemed offensive, including the seizure of personal devices and passwords. The parties and people who fall into this category include Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, the Green Party, Sinn Féin, Social Democrats, the Labour Party and some independent candidates. The second table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a moderate rating with regard to freedom of speech, noting that a moderate rating means the following: the criminalisation or suppression of speech and the right to express dissent. This category includes the likes of People Before Profit and some independent candidates. The third table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a strong rating with regard to freedom of speech, noting that a strong rating means the following: no restrictions on speech or the right to dissent, as the laws already in place are sufficient. This category includes the likes of the Freedom Party, Ireland First, the National Party, the Irish People, Aim 2, Independent Ireland and some independent candidates. The next area that we will look at is COVID-19 and related laws. On the screen you can see three ratings under the heading of weak, moderate or strong, with weak being those persons who either did or would be most likely in the future to vote in favour of COVID-19 laws, and those with a strong rating being the least likely. The first table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a weak rating with regard to the erosion of personal freedoms under the guise of COVID-19 or a similar event, noting that a weak rating means the following: strong government intervention with restrictions on human rights, freedoms and civil liberties, relying on a system of laws and punishments to encourage obedience, and a digital passport to track all citizens. This category includes the likes of Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, the Green Party, Fine Gael, the Social Democrats, the Labour Party, People Before Profit and some independent candidates. The second table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a moderate rating with regard to the erosion of personal freedoms under the guise of COVID-19 or a similar event, noting that a moderate rating means the following: restrictions on human rights, freedoms and civil liberties, relying on a system of laws and punishments to encourage obedience. This category only includes Independent Ireland and some independent candidates. The third and final table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a strong rating with regard to the erosion of personal freedoms under the guise of COVID-19 or a similar event, noting that a strong rating means the following: little to no restriction on human rights, freedoms and civil liberties, instead allowing individual citizens the freedom to make their own medical decisions. This category includes the likes of the Freedom Party, Ireland First, the National Party, the Irish People, Independent Ireland, Ain 2 and some independent candidates. The next area that we will look at is immigration. On the screen you can see 3 ratings under the headings of weak, moderate or strong, with weak being those persons or parties that favour an open borders immigration policy, and those with a strong rating being the least likely to favour this type of policy. The first table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a weak rating with regard to immigration and border security, noting that a weak rating means the following: parties or candidates who profess that we have international and moral obligations with respect to immigration, who believe that we should relax security checks and accept uncapped numbers of migrants, refugees and international protection applicants. This category includes the likes of Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, the Green Party, Fine Gael, the Social Democrats, the Labour Party, People Before Profit and some independent candidates. The second table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a moderate rating with regard to immigration and border security, noting that a moderate rating means the following: parties or candidates who profess that we have an international and moral obligation with regard to immigration, who believe that we should practice security checks and have controlled immigration but accept uncapped numbers of refugees and international protection applicants with the possibility of deportations. This category includes the likes of Ain 2, Independent Ireland and some independent candidates. The third table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a strong rating with regard to immigration and border security, noting that a strong rating means the following: parties or candidates who will put the interests of the Irish people before everything else, who believe in strong border security, controlled entry into Ireland and compulsory deportations. This category includes the likes of the Freedom Party, Ireland First, the National Party, the Irish People, Independent Ireland and some independent candidates. The final area that we will look at is climate change. On the screen you can see 3 ratings under the headings of weak, moderate or strong, with weak being those persons who have or are most likely to implement drastic climate change policies, and those with a strong rating being the least likely. The first table lists those parties and candidates that scored a weak rating, with a weak rating meaning maximum government control of property and resources to mitigate against the perceived threat of climate change, with heavy restrictions on rights and freedoms. This category includes the likes of Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin, the Green Party, Fine Gael, the Social Democrats, the Labour Party, People Before Profit and some independent candidates. The second table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a moderate rating with regard to climate change, noting that a moderate rating means the following: government bans and heavy taxes on items and activities that may exacerbate climate change. This category includes the likes of Ain 2, Independent Ireland and some independent candidates. The third table lists those parties and candidates that have scored a strong rating with regard to climate change, noting that a strong rating means little to no restriction on rights and freedoms, allowing each individual citizen to act in ways that help the environment as they see fit. This category includes the likes of the Freedom Party, Ireland First, the National Party, the Irish People, Independent Ireland and some independent candidates. That concludes the official rating of candidates and parties. In this next section, I intend to outline who I would vote for across the 3 constituencies. To begin, I want to say that over the past 4 years, I have had the privilege of meeting many people who would fight to preserve your and my freedom at any cost. And these people not only have my respect, but also have my votes. And this will naturally influence who I would vote for. In the Dublin constituency, I would only vote for the following, noting that these names are not in order of preference, but they are instead in alphabetical order. Rebecca Barrett, Philip Dwyer, Andy Heisman, Eamon Murphy, Diarmuid O'Connor, Stephen O'Rourke, Patrick Quinlan and Malachy Steenson. In the Midlands North West constituency, I would only vote for the following, again not in order of preference. Justin Barrett, Anthony Cahill, Herman Kelly, Margaret Maguire, James Reynolds, Dr. Jerry Waters and John Waters. Because the Midlands North West constituency is the constituency that I will be voting in, I want to make a comment about a couple of the candidates. The first comment I want to make is with regard to Dr. Jerry Waters. Dr. Jerry Waters has said that if he is elected to the European Parliament, he will donate his salary, number 1, to those who've been injured by the COVID-19 vaccine gene therapy and or a COVID inquiry. The second person that I want to mention is Kieran Malooly, who's running for Independent Ireland. It should be noted with respect to Kieran Malooly that in recent weeks, in reply to an Irish Independent article, he said that he does not believe that Ireland is full as regards immigration. And also in 2021, he made comments about checking the COVID-19 vaccination status of members of the Defence Forces, which I personally find to be morally reprehensible and utterly despicable. As I said, Kieran Malooly is a candidate for the new Independent Ireland Party. From reviewing many of the candidates that Independent Ireland are running across the European and local elections, it is fair to say that there is little to no consistency between the candidates. And for this reason, you cannot take it that Independent Ireland candidates will vote strong on immigration or the erosion of civil liberties simply because they are Independent Ireland candidates. So I would implore you to carry out thorough research on each individual candidate before offering them your vote. In the Southern constituency, I would only vote for the following, again not in order of preference. Derek Bly, Mary Fitzgibbons, Ross Lahive, Michael Leahy, Una McGurk and Kieran O'Riordan. Before concluding this video, I want to make one final comment regarding the European elections. Many people are saying that they would prefer to see some of the candidates running in the European elections instead put themselves forward for the general election, and that we cannot afford to lose some of these people to Europe. In this regard, please be aware that most of the parties and candidates that I intend to vote for have made a strategic decision to put candidates forward for Europe, because if they are successful in securing a seat in Europe, they will still run in the general election, and if they are successful in the general election, they can delegate their European election seat to another person. Noting that all candidates running in the European elections had to declare who those people were some weeks ago. I have left a link in the description box so you can see who each candidate intends to delegate their seat to should the opportunity arise. So when you're casting your votes on Friday, I would ask you to bear in mind that in all likelihood, if any of these candidates are successful in both the European and general elections, they will most likely delegate their European seat to another member of their party, thereby ensuring that they maximise this period of voting. That concludes this video. I hope the information delivered was of some help, but regardless of whether or not you agree with the information in this video or not, know that your vote counts. So please get out and vote on Friday, and let's try and turn the country around. Thanks for listening.